In yesterday's devotional reading, we closed out the book of Joshua by reading chapters 21 through 24. And what we've seen in the book of Joshua so far is an incredible story of how God sent his people into the land of Canaan to conquer the land that he had already given them. And it's an incredible story of God partnering with his people and leading his people into the promises that he had given them. And here at the end of the book of Joshua, we find Joshua pretty much on his deathbed. And he's got one last chance to instill in his people this idea of worshiping God and God alone. And I'm impressed with what Joshua says, because Joshua begins to speak a message from God. And it goes kind of like this in 24. It says, "This is what God, the God of Israel, says. A long time ago, your ancestors, Terah and his sons Abraham and Nahor, lived to the east of the river Euphrates. They worshipped other gods. I took your ancestor Abraham from the far side of the river. I led him all over the land of Canaan and multiplied his descendants. I gave him Isaac. Then I gave Isaac Jacob, and Jacob Esau. I let Esau have the mountains of Seir as his home, but Jacob and his sons ended up in Egypt. I sent Moses and Aaron. I hit Egypt hard with plagues and then led you out of there. I brought your ancestors out of Egypt. You came to the sea, the Egyptians in hot pursuit with chariots and cavalry, to the very edge of this Red Sea. Then they cried out for help to God. He put a cloud between you and the Egyptians, and then let the sea loose on them, and it drowned them. You watched the whole thing with your own eyes, what I did to Egypt." And then God continues and he says, listen, these are all the things that I've done for you over the last few decades. I led you out of Egypt. I didn't just lead you out of Egypt, but at the same time, I brought you to the country of the Amorites. I brought you to the Jordan. I brought you into here, into Canaan. And I went before you. I fought for you. And I gave you the victory to conquer this land. And he goes through list by list of everything that God has done for the nation of Israel. And you know what I'm kind of reminded of is here God is saying, look at how faithful I've been to you, Israel. Look at all that I've done for you, Israel. Look at your life. Look at your ancestors and see that I have acted on your behalf faithfully every single time. When I said I was going to do something, I did it, is basically what God is saying. And then Joshua ends this by saying, now it's your turn to be faithful to God. God has been faithful to you. Now it's time to get rid of all your idols. Now it's time to get rid of all those things and to worship the one true God, who's the only God that's been faithful to you. If I were to give you a devotional out of the end of this, it would be simply this. I find it really funny how quickly we abandon God in our lives when things don't go the way we planned them to. When we have heartache and pain, when life gets tough, when situations get out of control, most of the time we simply just take matters into our own hands. In essence, we become our own idols. We think that we can fix it. We can do it. We can, make it better. And we abandon God. And I think sometimes God just simply sits there and whispers in our ears, do you remember? Do you remember what I've done for you? You see, the key to faith is a great memory. It's remembering that God fought for you in the past, that God held your hand in the past, that it wasn't just you that made it through, but God working in the midst of your circumstance, in the midst of your fires, that helps you get through. See, people who don't have good memories, people who can't remember what God has done for them in the past to get them through heartache and pain, will never make it in the future. And that's why so many walk away from the faith. So I don't know what you're going through at this moment. I don't know what God's bringing you through. I don't know if there's a situation in your life, but I do know this, that God has been faithful to you in the past, and He's been faithful to me. He's fought for me. He's walked with me. He's guided me, and He's protected me. And I need to remember those moments when I'm facing the future, because they're key to having my faith in God. So whatever you're going through today, whatever situation you may face, I want you to think back on some moments in your life when God fought for you, when God was faithful to you. Rely on those moments, because God is showing you something. He's telling you right now, I was faithful then, and I'll be faithful now. The bigger question is, will you?